Hello there folks, and how is it going? And welcome back to another video. We are on the cliffs again, and what a difference a few days makes. The last video that you guys would have all seen was that crazy storm, the tail end of that storm that was battering this coast. And anybody that was following along on Instagram would have known that I kind of already found where I was going to be today for this particular video. And it is wonderful. The sun is just setting. It's probably about maybe 15-20 minutes off before it sets, and it's quite hazy, but really lovely. There's some absolutely wonderful light I hope you can see on the cliffside here behind me, and then also on this cliffside as well. You probably can't see that because the sun is so bright, but nonetheless, we are here having a great time. There's some serious crashy bashies happening on out here, and there's some nice crashing and bashing happening on out here as well. Plenty of angles, whether we're looking southwest or northwest. We have lots and lots of options. So let's stop rambling and let's get to shooting. I also forgot to mention that there's a big sea stack that's sticking up out of the water here as well, which could prove itself to be very nice after the sun has already set, because it's quite bright at the moment, so capturing a really nice long exposure. It'd be more of a blue hour kind of long exposure shot. But right now I have got my variable ND on, and I am looking this way because it is absolutely wonderful. The light is catching so well. Now there is a bit of cloud in the sky, so you never know, the landscape photography gods could prove themselves to show up for me today, and that would be wonderful if they did. But if not, nonetheless, we are getting some absolutely beautiful light over here on these cliff edges, and I am shooting at about 6 seconds at about f14. Just kind of playing around with some long exposures for the minute. Gonna wait for the sun to set a little bit more before I face more into the sun to kind of get this. There's a nice kind of crescent moon shape that we can kind of use as our leading line, etc. And but other than that, we're having a great time. Well, it's just me on my own today. Poor Orla is stuck at home working overtime, so it's just me today. So hence the reason why we're all handheld. But nonetheless, it is wonderful. I keep saying we. I'm so used to saying we because we're like inseparable. As it stands now, there's a couple of birds even out there. We might be able to incorporate the old birds into the picture. But anyways, I'm rambling crazy because I need to get shooting because it's all happening quite fast. So, but it's really wonderful. Really wonderful.
Welcome, friends, to the ASMR Photography Studio. Here is the result of this first image that I took on this wonderful evening. My only criticism with this is that I had to use the variable ND filter, and this drives me bananas. It always tends to soften the images just a bit, but it's so noticeable to me and it drives me crazy. This is one of the main reasons why I inevitably then swapped filters. Nonetheless, I was still able to retrieve some of the details and bring to life this image we see before us now. The light is so beautiful. The way it's catching and casting its golden hues across the cliff face really bring this image together. And the slowed down shutter speed really gives it an added layer of dynamism. And these are the types of images that I really love to capture. Simple, clean, but yet evoke emotion. Wonderful.
Now, I hope you can see me. I had to change lens, and so I don't know if my head's probably going to be massive in this frame, but I've actually put on my 10-stop neutral density filter, and looking out over here at this same cliff edge here, and I'm actually very happy with the results, which is really lovely. It's just got this lovely cliff just coming off to the right-hand side of the frame, and a lovely sea stacks that are just popping out, and there's some nice lovely separation in there. So I'm actually very, very happy with this one. Let's have a look and see. Very nice. And there's some beautiful structure in the clouds. And I'm actually going to keep this composition and hope that if the sky lights up, then I can possibly blend the images. We'll see, we'll see. That remains to be seen, but it is absolutely wonderful. Some beautiful, beautiful golden lights. My only concern now that I'm thinking about it is a slight breeze, so I really hope the tripod is good and sturdy enough to keep the images sharp. Now, I have obviously reviewed them on the back of the camera, and they do look, excuse me, they do look pretty good. But it's, you know, it's only when you get back onto the computer that you can really pixel peep and make sure everything's nice and sharp. But nonetheless, pictures are none. It's a wonderful, wonderful experience. The sun is probably going to set now in the next maybe 5 or 10 minutes or so. So I'm thrilled that I came out, and let's keep shooting anyways.
This for me is the highlight image of the entire evening. It was such wonderful light being cast, and with the shutter speed slowed right down, really added the ethereal feel to the water, which brought it all together so wonderfully. It's such a wonderful experience to simply wait and just admire nature as it unfolds and creates its beauty around you. And while there's no colour after being caught in the clouds, the sun was still up just a little bit too much. The light on the cliff edge is really what's important in this frame. And one thing that really caught my eye after photographing these sets of images was the patterns that the whitewash of the waves created in the sea. It's one thing that we can all take advantage of when adding filters to our lenses, is to use this whitewash to help guide our eye through the frame and ultimately up to the cliff and then up to the beautifully structured clouds in the sky. Such a wonderful image, and one that I would really love to print. And just before we continue, I must warn you that the rest of my kind of vloggy bits are very dark. I don't know what happened. I must have accidentally rolled the dial and set the ISO to 100 instead of auto. So things tend to get a bit dim from here on out. But nonetheless, you can still enjoy the mad ramblings of my insanity.
Well, folks, we've got some absolutely wonderful colour after catching in the sky for us a bit. In the wrong direction, of course, like always, but sure, look, such is the way of things. But nonetheless, I have been kind of playing around it, so the composition that I'm going to show you isn't exactly the same as the one that you just seen, but I was playing around with, there's like a gnarly looking kind of root tree thing that's here. I was trying to use it as a foreground, but it didn't really work. If it works, I'll show you, but if not, just pretend like I didn't mention anything. But the light is really, really lovely over facing the southwest, so I'm actually going to wait for this image to finish, and then I'm going to turn to face this way and see if I can play around with some nice long exposures and capture some of this colour in the sky. But for now, let's have a look and compare and contrast between when the light was on the cliffs to when there's it's not a huge amount of colour, but you'll see. Okay, let's have a look.
So here is the result of the image that I was just talking about. For me, the previous example of the light on the cliff, I feel, is a stronger image, but the color in the sky here is just so wonderful. I toyed around with blending the exposures, but to be honest, I'm like, my Photoshop abilities are really not that good, and it just looked terrible. So I wouldn't insult anyone by putting that in there, but nonetheless, I still really like this image, predominantly, I guess, for that color in the sky, and of course, for me, the composition really works because it's just a simple, clean, kind of minimalist kind of frame, and I really do enjoy that about this image. But I will pose the question to you all. Do you prefer the pre-sunset image or this kind of after hour glow image? I would be so curious to know what your thoughts are, so please do let me know in the comments below. This image is the one that I mentioned where I was playing around using these gnarled up looking tree roots as a foreground element. It was a bit tough to get a decent composition. I only included this really just to include it. I do like having such a strong foreground element in the frame. I had to shoot it handheld, and I really would have liked to focus stack the image, but really it just shooting handheld like that doesn't really lend itself well to focus stacking, well, at least in my experience. But I still do actually like the image. The foreground interest is just so wonderful, and it really anchors the frame so well, and then leads you out into the sunset and the cliff edge. Again, like if you were to zoom right in, I focused on the tree roots, so everything kind of off to the back is a bit out of focus, but nonetheless I just wanted to include this in so you guys could have a look. So I would be again curious to know if you think it turned out well, but I think it's okay. So it's okay.
So I'm actually shooting a very nice composition, at least I think it is, with the big C stack on the right, and then just the edge of the cliff protruding into the left of the frame, and then the last of this color in the sky. So I don't know if you can kind of see behind me here, kind of looking, sweeping across this way, but it's nice. I've got the 10 stop on, so it'll be a nice long exposure. And let's have a look here at the back of the camera. Yeah, that's nice. Ha. That's a nice surprise right there. It's really nice. The light is fading though, super quick. Capture another couple of pictures, and then I think I'll probably call it a day, because as beautiful as it is, the light's fading fast, and I'm on a cliff edge, and my camera looks like it's having a fit at the minute. There was a few videos back when I got smashed by a wave, which tends to happen quite a lot, as you probably could tell from the last video as well. But my camera hasn't been the same since. It keeps telling me, I'll show you, look. Yep. That's what I do have to look at from time to time. It just doesn't work, so I have to turn it off and turn it on again. But anyways, that's enough ramblings. I'll continue to take a few more pictures, and let's see how they all turn out. Okay.
I actually really like the way this image turned out. You know, one of the benefits of lingering at a place after the sun has set, it really allows you to flex your creativity in relation to exposure times, compositions. You don't necessarily need to worry so much about a massive dynamic range as if you were to shoot directly into the sun as it was setting. So these types of images really do lend themselves well to a slowed down kind of meditative state, if you will, when it comes to taking images. And I enjoy that to no end. I really like the composition here. You've got that heavy foreground element of the big C stack, and then it's nicely balanced with the cliff edge on the left, obviously then taking us across with a nice long exposure, and that whitewash doing its job again as it brings us across into the wonderfully beautiful sky that we see in the image. I cropped this out as a 16:9, only just to eliminate some of the foreground element. There was a small piece of the cliff edge down on the foreground element which I didn't want in the frame, but I think as a 16:9 it still really works. Very cinematic kind of scene, and again this wonderful ethereal feel to the overall image. Really happy with how this one turned out.
So I've actually just moved down a small bit to try and photograph this big standing sea stack that's on its lonesome out here with the cliffs behind. First composition I'm kind of playing around with. I've got a bit of a foreground element in it. Not entirely too sure yet. I have to come back up to get to get the camera and my bag. Oh my God, it's so dangerous. But nonetheless, let's have a look. Oh yeah. That's not bad at all. I'm going to move around just a small bit. Just I want to try and eliminate any kind of foreground, just so it's the big C stack, and then try and incorporate some of the cliffs in the back as well. So let's move around and see what we can do.
So as I mentioned, the ISO being so wildly off and it's just dark. I did have some mad ramblings that I ended up cutting out because it was just, you just couldn't see anything. It would have just been this disembodied voice talking madness about foreground and cliff edges. This is the result of one of the images that I took. I did talk about trying to eliminate any kind of foreground, but when reviewing those pictures, they were just very blur. For me, having this foreground element in really adds a nice depth to the frame and also helps to balance. Having the foreground cliff edge included is a nice counter to the mighty sea stack that's popping up in the middle of the frame, and then catching just that very last bit of light in the sky is just so wonderful. I did shoot a darker exposure for the highlights just because I knew I wanted to bring those back in post-production, and I am super happy with how this particular frame turned out.
Thankfully that last ramble that I just recorded was too dark. The dial moved, so it set itself to ISO 100, so not auto, so it was just totally blank, so you couldn't see it. You could certainly hear me rambling, but anyways, I will keep this particular one shorter and briefer. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. If you enjoyed the video, absolutely give it a thumbs up. It really does help out, and if you do fancy following along for more adventures, then please do hit that subscribe button. For now, I'm going to just photograph this very last picture, and if it turns out, I'll pop it up on the screen for you, and if not, then I will see you on the next one. Okay, take it easy, everybody. Cheers.